Welcome to the New Consciousness Now podcast. This episode originally aired as a video on our New Consciousness Now YouTube channel. Our goal is to be a conduit for the emerging consciousness on the planet and to anchor that consciousness more solidly in the present moment for our listeners. Your hosts are Gail Wolf and Dr. Jay Eaker. Let's get into it.
We are alive.
We're alive.
We are on.
Who are we?
Well, that is the never-ending question, is it not? Currently, in this incarnation, in this physical form, my name is Gail Wolf, and I am in Stockton, Illinois.
Who am I and why am I here?
And why am I here? Why ever would I come here?
I'm Jay Eaker in Lafayette, Colorado, which is close to Boulder.
Yep. Just outside.
Yep.
Just outside Boulder. Well,
current
just talking.
Maybe it's another kind of current event one. We're just talking.
I think it's another day of current events, I think. There are some interesting things happening.
And you've been, I don't know, you kind of posting some things on Facebook because you kind of said that you wanted to create conversation. It sounds like you got your wish.
It's the wish has been granted on Facebook. The conversation is alive and lively.
Right.
Indeed it is.
Yeah, you were talking about a comment that you made about some stuff that you were seeing. I also saw something. I don't know, wisely or not, we did a podcast here the other day on racism, and I saw that someone was making some comments on something you'd said on that topic too. So sounds like you're touching all the hot buttons.
Oh yes, that's right. Touching all the hot ones. All the hot ones are doing it. Yeah, for sure. Well, to give a little backdrop or give you the backstory on what my friend Jay here is talking about is it was last week or 2 weeks ago. I think it was maybe even more than 2 weeks ago now at this point, but made a post that essentially was talking about how I believe that that viruses and bacteria and illness in general really is not necessarily something that you catch by physical little cooties or by germs or that kind of thing. That I believe that are more quantum than that. That I believe that there's more of an energetic component to that. Or around someone who's sick or not sick, if you are energetically secure and vibrant inside and happy and you're very balanced and healthy, you will not get sick. And I turn this into a post in so many ways, or in so many words. I said that in a post, and then also had mentioned that COVID itself is a tool for awakening, that it's not a comfortable thing to receive or endure or go through, but it has to it a component of helping a person to awaken within themselves, within the cells of their bodies, within their DNA. And that brought on, I know what really got people is I had said that there are those who were of a lower vibration or heavier, if you don't love yourself and you have heavier thoughts, this is compounded. If you get sick, it makes it worse. And that really got some people upset because they said they started to bring in systematic racism and other such factors that influence a person's beliefs about themselves. And essentially they're telling me I was a racist for saying these things. And I thought, wow, okay, it's very interesting. And to me, they're very separate issues, quite frankly. because I was simply talking about the functioning of disease and how it works inside of a human's body. And then they were kind of bringing in the side door, the racism piece.
Right.
And now, while the key there is like, I do agree that systematic racism is a huge problem, that it is here, that it exists, that it definitely holds some people down and props up some other people. I wholeheartedly agree that it's that I don't like it, that I don't believe it has a place here, that it's wrong, and I would really like to see it shift. So I totally line up with everything they're saying. And it's just seemed to me that some people aren't drawn the line where they see that there's any separation between the two issues, that everything kind of melds into one. And anyway, I took some heat for that. I took a lot of heat for that.
It's a hard one. It's a hard line to draw, to talk about. I don't know, talk about higher vibration or low, people are going to feel judged or whatever.
Yeah.
And then it goes down the rabbit hole.
Yeah. Felt judged, or felt like I was judging. And, there's an interesting thing that goes on, I think, and that is that we're all the same in this world, and this, I don't think that we are all the same. I believe we are all very different, but at the heart of things, I believe we're the same. When we really get into like our souls and who we are, as beings, as being human, we are very much the same. But we're all in this world as we see it, with different attributes and different propensities and different gifts and different aptitudes. And in that way, we are very different. Even our skin color is different. There are certain genetic pieces between the races that are a little bit different in the DNA. Like there are things that differentiate us. And I think that some people believe that by ignoring these things, or saying that we are all equal in every single regard, that it will somehow remove judgment or racism or, whatever that is. And my thought on all that is, I don't think it'll work, but I believe that if we are all understanding and curious about one another's differences, that really is the means to coming together, to seeing eye to eye, to reconciling things, to having a more compassionate and connected world.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's where I end up going with things when I start talking about racism and COVID, and I just don't buy that.
Right. Wait a minute, you don't buy, as far as, I guess I'm a little confused still, like how.
Oh,
it's funny how like, this COVID thing, and then with the George Floyd thing, how these two separate things kind of got, like, race stuff and disease got sort of
stuck together
in a weird way.
Well, and here's the thing too. And I mean, there are biological things here. And I was watching a Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Actually that debate that you sent me, Jay, between him and that Harvard lawyer,
right?
The Harvard business lawyer.
Oh yeah.
Which I thought that was a brilliant conversation. I
didn't actually watch. I got to watch just maybe the first 10 minutes of it or something. But
oh, okay, yeah, I watched the whole thing, and there was he said some very interesting things, and he said that
Who did Robert
For
F? Who's he? Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Yeah, Robert
Uh-huh.
F. Kennedy Sr.'s son. But he was saying how there are vaccines, and I don't remember which one it was. It might have been the polio or the flu or something like that. But to give that same vaccine to a white boy or a black boy, the black boy is 4 times more likely to have complications than the white boy.
Hmm.
Now that is not a racist statement. That is a biological event.
Right.
To me, when there is judgment placed within there saying that one is better than the other, then that turns into a racist statement.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like people are taking the acknowledgement of difference and saying that is racist.
Mm.
And to me, it's just acknowledging the way certain things function in the world. And now
my gosh,
what's
this is
your
a touchy subject, but it makes me think about. I mean, not that we're not already talking about touchy subjects, but
sure.
for which I don't know if I'm really qualified to speak about. But it seems like that's a definitely a thing that's happening. Uh, what you just said on all different, as far as like gender goes and all sorts of ways.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry. What did you just say that made me think of that? Uh, what did you just say before?
Well, just
I
about,
spotted off.
the acknowledgement of biological
Oh, right,
differences
right,
is
right,
not,
right,
stating our differences is not racist, but
right.
the judgment that gets applied to that, or a
Sure,
hierarchy that gets applied to it, now that's
sure.
racist. There's a
Yeah,
difference.
because there are
In
there are
my book, there's a difference.
right,
I mean, otherwise, how can you have a conversation? How can you even
right,
justify having a science that would
right,
try to alleviate that issue? You would say
right.
the entire science is racist. We should shut that science down because it's racist. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, that the lunacy in that just makes no sense to me.
Mm.
But anyway, what you were going to say something in
No,
there?
I wasn't going to say anything. Yeah, but it's just true. I mean, those are facts. There are, biological differences between probably between races, there's biological differences between men and women. There's
Yeah,
biological differences that happen for sure.
yeah.
Um, Gosh, I'm having trouble keeping my train of thought here. I had something that you were talking about there that prompted something else. Anyway, lost it.
Well,
Oh, I know. I
yes.
was going to ask you. I know what I was going to ask. Oh, on that video with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I mean, what did they say are the reasons for that difference between, like, if they give a vaccine to, that saying that black boys might have a reaction, or what was it?
It if we're 4 times more likely to have an adverse reaction to the vaccine.
And what did they have any idea why that is?
He did not go into the specifics behind that. He simply was stating that as a statistical fact.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, he was also saying that these are the types of things that they bury, that they hide, that they don't allow the public to find out about, so
Mm-hmm.
they can put vaccines out there.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Right.
if you want to talk about systematic racism or that sort of thing, to me, rather than getting upset at me pointing things like this out, start looking at the pharmaceutical companies and the procedures that they have to hide this type of thing, and let them hear about it.
Mm-hmm. It's something the other topic that you were talking about that's really interesting is this idea of quantum sort of nature. Would you call it a quantum disease
Quantum
or
quantum illness.
quantum
And
illness?
yeah, and it's so interesting.
I think that's
It's
an
like
interesting
our
thing.
yeah, like our awareness is always our awareness is always at fault, if you will, or cause of, or can help facilitate all things, whether they be good or whether they be bad. And as we've evolved through time, initially, people were getting sick and dying of these, like the Black Plague or black lung, or not black lung. I think that's what they get in coal mines. But these different plagues that have gone on, they've had where lots of people die and there's all kinds of problems, right? Well, then all of a sudden they come out and they're like, oh, hey, if you wash your hands, you do these things. We got these little things called germs. You can actually wash some of this away, and you'll be fine. Well, okay, that brought an awareness to something, and now it's like that was the limits of our awareness at that time. Our consciousness was really spun into the three-dimensional world and the concrete aspects of reality. And
which do exist, right? It's not like they don't.
No, they exist. For certain. We have bodies. We have, we live in houses. We touch things that are solid.
These viruses, then, do they have physical bodies? They are physical things?
Well, that's a very interesting thing. I believe we're getting to the point where we can affect that and make it so they're not here. That we're to a point of our quantumness where our awareness allows us to either allow these things to come into us and show up, or not be there and keep them out. And it's like, have you ever been? I've had this experience a number of times. It was one of the reasons why I truly believe in what I'm talking about, is that, like, being in the room and I feel totally fine physically, very, very healthy. And someone in the room might have like a chest cold and they're coughing, and you can hear the gurgly, wet cough that they have. And you know that there's that phlegm and stuff that's in their chest when they're coughing.
Makes
and
me
they're oh yeah, and they're like spitting things up and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's like you can either, and I've been in the position where I've taken on like that energy of that person in the room without really getting near them, and I can feel it in my chest. There's a discernible feeling in my chest, and sure enough, it'll develop. Or there's times that I have felt that in my chest, and I'm like, oh, I don't want this, and I deliberately work the energy in my body to where it expels it, and I do not get sick. That is to me, that is a quantum event. It's a quantum event, and there's a choice to either get sick or not get sick. And if I were really run down or tired in that moment, and I wasn't aware of the feeling of that energy, or have the sensitivity of my being dialed in the way that it is, that I couldn't feel that energy, then I get sick. And go ahead.
To what extent do you think that involves the transfer of actual physical things,
microbes?
Microbes, yes.
Can
you get sick without the microbe? Without the actual physical? Sounds like that's what you're saying. It sounds like you're saying you could get sick without the actual.
That is what I'm saying.
Or that it's like, what's that old thing of spontaneous regeneration, this sort of idea that I used to think that, like, if you took a rag with grain in it and you put it in a corner and you come back later and there's mice in it, it's like if no one was watching, did the mice spontaneously appear?
Well,
sounds like you're kind of saying that, like we could sort of like create those. I wonder, like, maybe they're so it's like you might like things that are so small.
Yeah.
Things that are so small, actually. I mean, like, if something's like so small, is it possible that it can sort of like, if it's so small that it's on the edge of physical existence, that it could sort of
And
like pop in and out
well, that's my kind of
physical
what I'm saying.
existence?
That's what I believe happens. I don't believe the microbes are just there. I believe that they show up there.
Because like they say
It's
that,
kind of like,
I don't want to keep interrupting you. I'm sorry.
mm,
That's the problem with this back and forth, the phone thing. Sorry, but it
yep.
makes me, think of, like they say, like electrons and atoms, like it's not so much that, it's like they're more like probabilities. The way that they measure those things is like it seems like
Yes,
they're like on the edge
this is what I'm
of
talking about.
they're like on the edge of physical existence, like things at the quantum level. Yeah, things at the quantum level, at that small, they don't sort of act like things, that are not on the quantum level,
Yeah,
and that
you
they sort of
can't touch
pop,
them.
sort of like, it's like they pop in and out of existence.
Well,
um so I
it's
wonder.
like I was talking to a nurse friend of mine a couple of months ago about this, and he was talking about how, one of the activating element of a vaccine is that it spurs the body to start creating antibodies. And I said, well, how does the body do that? He says,
Mhm.
well, he simply says it digs deep within itself and it pulls the antibody out. Okay, so what the fuck is that? It pulls deep within itself and it develop. We don't know where the antibody comes from. The
What is it?
antibodies are it's a quantum event. It literally manifests out of thin air. And I realize that concept really blows people's minds away, as if you can't
What is an
manifest
antibody?
things out of.
That's a good question. Like, what is an antibody?
It's a good question.
I don't know
But
enough to know what that is.
yeah,
It's a protein. Probably it's like a protein.
yeah, I'm not quite sure.
Uh, yeah. Felt like
I'm
a
not sure.
few strands of DNA and RNA, probably. Anyway, I don't know.
Yeah. But I was thinking, like, this, we don't believe we can just have things show up like they're, for example, the antibodies the body manifests them. The body
Mhm.
manifests all kinds of things that weren't there before. And it's like,
Right.
we know we eat food, and we know that we transform that food into something else. We know that when you take a piece of paper, it's in one form, but when you light it on fire, it turns into another couple of
Mm-hmm.
forms.
Right.
Why would it not make sense that you can have your body be in one form, and because of some sort of an energetic event, it turns into something else? For
Mm-hmm.
example, you have a healthy cell that because you quantumly thought about this, something strong enough, that cell changed and it turned into something that was no longer healthy, and now you have COVID.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that our consciousness and our awareness at this time of evolution have elevated to a point where that is possible. And I believe it actually has always been possible, but we just haven't been able to be aware of it in the past. But
Right.
now we've evolved to a point that we can be conscious of it and we can start working with it. And it's one of my hypotheses, or one of my beliefs, is that this time right now is really about bringing that level of awareness, or that knowing out to people, because we're ready to start working in the world that way, and we can have huge leaps in awareness, huge leaps in technology, huge leaps in the eradication of illness on this planet. There are so many things that I believe are possible once this becomes embraced.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like where does I'm just thinking, like, where does so this, you see on TV or whatever, we know this shape of COVID, it's like this little round thing with those red nubbins coming off of it.
Yeah, is that even real? Or
Right.
is that just an image they chose? And that's kind of my sense, to be honest with you.
Right.
But
Well, I mean, when they
anyway,
talk about it, they say that it has that, that there's, I don't know, it sounds like physical layers to it. But
uh-huh.
how do they, has anyone actually like caught one under a microscope, or wonder how that works, how they come up with that,
I don't know.
if that's real, or what is that? And they talk about it as if, it has these different a protein layer, and these little nubbins. They're certain things. They are actual certain little things. They talk about it as if it's an actual physical, a physical body.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I wonder to what extent that's true, and if it is, like, where does that come from? How does that grow?
Yeah.
It's just like a little strip of like genetic material. And what is genetic material? Just like proteins put together in a certain, ultimately, that sort of like move, I don't know, they move energy, they move, it moves energy, electricity, or energy through the bonds, the chemical bonds, in a certain way, and that manifests as this thing somehow that like does all this stuff in our bodies, supposedly.
Mm-hmm.
But on the sort of, you go even lower on that chemical level, it's like it's electrons spinning around something. There's, again, I guess that's on the quantum level. There's a level at which it's mostly
Well, even they're just saying
energy, mostly space.
like the quantum physicists and scientists even say, like, you'll look at some of this quantum material, and it'll appear or disappear depending on your thought. Like there's scientific proof out there that our thoughts affect the cells, that our thoughts affect these little things, and that they appear and disappear,
Right.
with thought.
The idea
And
that just the act of observing it, I think.
the act of observing it changes it.
And yeah, I've heard some discussion on whether, like, does that yeah, just the act of observing it changes it. Trying to find a spot here where I'm not all camouflaged. Looks like I've got tree camouflage on. Anyway.
Got tree camouflage. Tree of flage.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, very, very much a real thing. Very much a real thing. And so, to me, that's a huge component of how disease works. And my hope is that, with this event of COVID, is that it brings enough awareness to medicine, and really the how, and don't get me wrong, medicine has done a great job for a number of years, and has done a lot of good, but it can do a lot more. It can do a lot better, is what I'm trying to say. And that I believe that if we change some of our concepts around what is possible with our mindset, and with being balanced in our bodies and being balanced with ourselves, that we'll have far healthier experiences, without having to have the intervention of certain medicines.
Right.
That a lot of, the fact that we take a medicine, and you need to take 4 or 5 other medications just to counteract the effects of all the other medicines you're on.
Right.
Like that is asinine to me. Like that there is a better way.
Right.
And some people say that there is not a better way. And I couldn't imagine living in a world that thinking that way, that there's not something better, that you can't have something better. That's a very fatalist perspective in my eyes.
I wonder if I don't know. Do you think it's like the medical world? Do you think it's their job to sort of like figure out this quantum thing that we're talking about? It kind of seems like
I think they need to listen to it or be open to it, because this is where I think that the quantum physicists, like quantum physicists and scientists and medicine and actually spirituality need to come together.
Right.
I believe that these things are all need to come together and meld in order for this type of healing and this type of thing to take root and work for people.
Right. I mean, down the line, it seems like, I don't know, that seems like that's always what happens. Kind of the science catches up with, spiritual stuff, or they come together. But right now, it certainly seems. I mean, I was thinking about this as I've been working on this book that I've been working on, and it's just like the medical world. Thank God they're here, and like one of their jobs is like they just want to keep you alive at all costs. Like there's this, I don't know, thing in society where we're just so afraid of death. I think maybe we were talking about this last time.
Probably
too,
did.
one other time about death and what that is. But that they just want to, and they're so good at it to keep us alive, no matter what. To sort of restore, I don't know, in some way restore the status quo, or restore what was, when I feel like life is constantly trying to ask us to change and evolve. And on some level, their job is kind of to maintain what was, on some level. Just that it feels like there's just two separate, like the thing that we're talking about and the medical world, it's just like kind of like right now anyway, going in two separate directions. And they're the way they look for things is, they break it down into they break us all up into pieces, and they study and observe the pieces separately from the whole. And what we're talking about is seeing the whole and taking that into effect. Which seems like there's two very sort of separate ways of paradigms, or two very separate paradigms that sort of influence those two poles, and we're very separate. Yeah. Interesting.
Kind of the
What
wellness, kind of the wellness versus patching people up sort of paradigm.
Right.
It's like the difference really kind of between Eastern and Western medicine. To me, I see Eastern medicine as more wellness care and maintaining, and Western medicine be as more as we're gonna piece you back together because your arm is laying in the middle of the street. Like that's where Western medicine really excels, is in putting the body physically back together, where to me the Eastern really does a great job of understanding the spiritual and energetic aspects of the body. And so to me, it's like putting these things together was really just would be a brilliant thing to do. And I believe that there's a lot that both worlds can teach one another in regards to that.
Yeah, I don't know if how you can. I don't know how it's possible to sort of like put those things together. I think, like when you say wellness, I think I'm talking about more of a quantum healing thing. Uh, and wellness is and then there's the medical allopathic sort of paradigm. And I think wellness is the sort of middle ground um, uh, of those things. The parts of that, if you had like a Venn diagram, I guess you know what a Venn diagram is. Those like circles.
Mm-hmm.
The
Mm-hmm.
part of that Venn diagram that overlap. But I think there's just a small part of that overlaps. It's just kind of like a pet peeve of mine where, you know, there are natural or alternative healing modalities, but in some way they're kind of working from sort of, it's like natural or it's alternative. They're still just trying to restore what was. They're still just trying to take people's pain away, get you back to where you were before, restore the status quo, kind of like the medical world does, but just from a more natural, um,
Mm.
you know, uh,
Sounds like you're talking about
spin.
it sounds like you're talking about making a paradigm shift in the medical establishment.
And I'm saying, just the world that I work in, it's about our evolution. Everything that's happening is for our evolution, just like this COVID thing, and that there's kind of there's always this sort of like marching forward, like life is nudging us forward. And yeah, I'm afraid like the medical world is more about often stopping that forward movement, and sometimes even alternative alternative healing modalities can
I'm
be used
gonna,
from that paradigm too.
I'd like to expand on that comment uh, because I've gotten slammed for saying that. I've
Oh,
gotten slammed. I've gotten slammed for making that statement. And so I just want to take what you've just said
you got
and
slammed
expand
for saying what?
for saying what you just said there
Oh,
about, medical establishment kind of holding people back. And is that understand that
that
when
saves our life. That saves our lives
it
sometimes.
it, it, it
Often,
does it,
it
it
saves our
does
lives.
save our lives, but
It gives you another
but it's
chance to. It gives you another chance to gives you another chance to
yeah.
learn more.
And it's not the medical professionals who are in medicine in the hospitals in the offices that are at fault. And these are like people that go to school to be nurses, people that go to school to be doctors, people that jump into the medical profession with a sincere desire to help people are not the cause or the problem.
I'm not
It
saying there's
is the
necessarily is
way.
a problem. There's just it's like just like two totally separate paradigms, and they're working
Yeah,
from that paradigm. And that paradigm is very useful sometimes if your life needs to be saved, if you've gotten yourself in a situation where your life needs to be saved.
sure.
Sorry, but I cut you off there.
Um, but yeah,
It's
they
not the
like
medical people.
it's not the medical people, it's the system itself.
Yeah, right.
And to me there's a lot of money wrapped up in creating these vaccines and creating these medicines, in selling these medicines.
The
And
business.
it's a business. And we've seen the darkness that people have sometimes when it comes to making decisions that make other people comfortable or heal them, or they're totally callous and just say, I don't care how many people we kill with this medicine, so long as we make our $10 billion on this, or however many millions of dollars, I'll use more reasonable numbers, however many millions of dollars we get off of this patent or this medicine, that's okay.
They're beholden to the shareholders. It's not
Yeah,
so
and
much
it's,
about the people that the vaccine
yeah,
or the whatever
to a
the
lot of
medicine
these
is
people,
for.
it's just a number on a piece of paper for some of these guys who are the bean counters. And there are some people who are really challenged by that thought, but it's true. There are some people on this planet that do not hold a high value for human life and value money more. It is a fact. It's out there and it's a fact. And some of these people are in our corporate businesses and in our industries. And my sense is that is really challenging for some people to embrace. And I really have compassion, because it's terrible to think that. That's a terrible thought to have. But the majority of the people who are in healthcare, in a hospital, or in a doctor's office, are very well-meaning people who give their heart and soul to the people that come in to receive care.
Right.
But the system and the means they are given to help these people is where I believe that a lot of times our current medical model falls short. And the other piece with this, and this is where the paradigm shift comes in, that I believe you were kind of leaning into, is this idea that we get sick and we try to get ourselves back to where we were. And in truth, that negates a lot of the beauty that sickness brings to us. Is that sickness is an opportunity to not get back to where we were, but it's an opportunity to go beyond where we've been, and become grander than we've been, and become more whole than we've been. Because if we're totally connected and totally aware and conscious of the sickness, and totally, we're not trying to deny that it's there, and we actually work with the sickness that we have, we can move beyond where we've been. Because sickness is a lens into what hasn't been working.
Mm-hmm.
And once you address the hasn't been working, all of a sudden things start working better.
Well, working
differently. Or more efficiently and differently. So to me, it just makes a lot of sense.
A lot of you got to be ready to give up a lot of control. You got to sort of be connected to on some level. I don't know, there's like the sixth sense, like there's smell, there's taste. What do they smell? Taste, touch, sight, hearing. But then there's like the sixth sense, that is like this knowing, or that you get as a connection to spirit or whatever. And it requires a certain amount of that to be able to trust enough to not want to control. I don't know, to just trust life. You have to on some level just trust life and trust your body as an expression of life. Kind of got to be in a certain place. And there's many like on the continuum of, totally trusting your body and life, and totally not. There's sort of a continuum. And
What about what do you see that continuum as being? Like, what is that continuum?
I was just saying that there's I don't know, for whatever, just a continuum of, I don't know. Again, I don't want to get into like trying like creating separations, but like a continuum of awareness.
Mm-hmm.
A continuum of awareness of like who we are and what we are and what this is and what our relationship is to it. And if you have the sense that you're on, that you're infused with a felt sense that your expression of life, and that you're connected to all this in some way, then you have a greater capacity to sort of trust. But on the other end of the continuum are people who don't have that sense so much. I dare say, not as infused with spirit as much, like don't have that sense.
Yeah.
More of a reductionist view of themselves and the world, more of a mechanical view. Yeah, and there's there's many versions of that on the continuum.
Yes.
So
Yes, there
it's kind of
are.
hard. It's kind of hard to say, like, what's gonna um, serve this person or that person. Might be some combination of quantum stuff and some combination of medical stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's such a big point, because, and then this is another thing too I really want to point out with all of this, is every illness must be approached from the awareness and the consciousness that we have within us.
Right.
And
Right.
what we believe really matters.
Sure, a thing that works for you gotta, like, I just see this in my practice, like, you just gotta, like, let people go in the direction, you can always sort of like plant seeds or whatever, but you just gotta let people go in the direction that feels that they're drawn to,
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I had a practice member, a client who many years ago, I guess she had cancer like 3 times, she said. Like, first time she had some kind of cancer, I can't remember. And they, like, they told her, you have to do this, you have to do that, you have to do chemotherapy and radiation and all this stuff. And she's like, she had this knowing. She just had this knowing that this thing wasn't going to kill her. Like, it was a process that was sequencing itself through, and she just had that knowing.
Mm-hmm.
But and so and she didn't do the chemo and the radiation and all that, and she healed, because she sort of, like, knew she would. She had that knowing. But
Yeah.
I wouldn't suggest that people try to make that up.
No,
You shouldn't try to.
don't try to make that up.
You shouldn't try to go, well, I'm gonna heal this if I, you shouldn't try to make that up. If that knowing's not there,
Totally.
yeah, you shouldn't try to make it
Yeah,
up.
it's a bad idea to bypass your own beliefs.
Right.
Bad idea. Just because someone tells you this is the truth, until you believe it, don't believe them. Until you can own it.
There's some good clips there. That's some
Yeah,
media worthy clips that you're saying there.
Mm-hmm. But so true.
Can you say that again about can you say what you said again? Those words hit pretty strongly.
Well, gosh, what did I say? Yeah, don't believe just because someone tells you something to believe. Don't believe it until you can own it. Don't believe it until it lands for you and you can own it with your own being.
Right.
Don't let someone else's beliefs become your own until you're able to embody it.
Right.
And then move forward from there. That's the whole idea of a conversation or a teaching or anything, is not that you instantaneously can do it or you understand it, but it gives you a roadmap into, hey, this is what's possible if you integrate the information that I'm giving you in your own way. Then this is what will be possible for you as well. It's the same thing if you're teaching someone how to add or multiply or divide, do some sort of math function, and you sit there and you describe to them, here's how you do this. And while some people will look at that and go, no problem, done. Other people, it's a process for them to keep working with it until they fully integrate it and it becomes second nature. The same thing holds true with dealing in this quantum way, where I'm talking about the feeling of a disease and being aware that, wow, I feel this disease that's in this other person. I can also feel it in myself. I'm just going to say no to it and send it out, and then I'm fine. But for and so, in that regard, and I will probably get strung up for saying this, but I would have no problems hugging someone with COVID. I really wouldn't. I would have no problems. Hugging someone that's got something like that. Like it wouldn't bother me.
What if it had like a 10% death rate? What if it was more serious than it is?
No, it's still fine. Like
Still hug them?
Like yeah, for sure. Like right now I'm dating someone, spending a lot of time with someone who had a cold sore the other day, and she's like, "Well, gosh, should we lay back?" I'm like, "No, I won't get it." She's like, "Really?" I said, "Yeah, don't worry about it." So I didn't let that get in the way of anything, and I have nothing.
Right.
But this is how I believe my body works. I've spent years training my mind to believe this about myself. I've spent years training and working with my energy to be able to do this. And so it's like other people can do the same thing, but don't hear my words and say, well, I'm just going to practice this. I'm just going to do this because he could. Like, know where you're at, know where your beliefs are. And if you're someone that still strongly believes in a vaccine, my God, please go get it. Please go get vaccinated if that's what you feel right about.
Right.
If that's what's going to make you well, go get vaccinated. Go get the test. Do what you feel you need to do for yourself. Operate from the place of your own understanding. But at the same time, get the fuck off your neighbor's lawn.
That sounds familiar.
Quit telling everybody else how to mow the grass. Let people believe what they believe and operate in the ways that they know that they can.
Right.
So
yeah, but it's like, it's such a weird place where it gets tied up, where this thing where, if it's like, if kind of like everyone's has to be on the same page for it to work sort of idea, that's where it gets sticky. It's just kind of interesting how it got, like, why is it that people who believe what I believe or are not, forcing everyone to do what we do, but we might get forced to take a vaccine. Because I keep seeing things. I don't know if it ever gets to this point, but I keep seeing things where, well, that conversation we were just talking about with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and that other, what's that guy's name? He's a kind of a famous guy. I can't remember his name.
Harvard lawyer.
But
I can't think of his name.
They started off the conversation by him saying that, he thinks there's no reason why they shouldn't be able to force you to take a vaccine.
He was, what's interesting, and I watched him make those statements, and it was very polarizing for me to hear him say that. And to give you a little backdrop on those who are listening, what this man had said, and this is a Harvard lawyer. Harvard, he's a lawyer, but he also is a prof at Harvard has been for quite some time. He's a very esteemed man. And he said that according to the way certain cases have gone in the Supreme Court, that his interpretation of the law is that in his current understanding of it is that they have every right to hold us down and stick a needle in our arm and vaccinate us totally against our will, that they have that authority. And that was his statement. However, and he never said that he never really stated his personal beliefs through it all.
He didn't say whether or not he thought that was right or not. He just said,
he just said, this is
the facts are
my
right now.
Interpretation. This is the way I see it operating. That was his statement of his way he believed it operated.
Dershowitz, that guy's name is Dershowitz.
Dershowitz. Okay.
I just looked it up here.
Okay. Good job. Yeah. So I mean, I don't ultimately know what he truly believes in the middle of it all, but I kind of got the sense towards the end of the interview that he was not necessarily for it, because he did mention that he does have libertarian leanings on a political scale. So I was kind of like, oh, being held down and forced to take a vaccination is not something a libertarian would most likely support. But yeah, I believe that you're bringing this up as a means because, or to illustrate that if they try to come out with some sort of a blanket idea, then we're gonna have problems.
Yeah,
we're gonna have problems.
I try to think like, well, how I would deal with that.
Yeah.
I mean, and it wouldn't be probably wouldn't be like, like that, like they would hold you down or force you or whatever, unless it was something that was super bad. But it would probably be more sneakier than that. It would be like, oh, you can't get a license unless you are.
No, I totally think that's what they'll do. Is
you can't get on a plane, or you can't
get on an airplane. Yeah.
Or I don't know, can't do certain things. It's your choice. It's your choice, but yeah,
your choice, but you can't do this or that.
You just won't be able to work, or you just won't be able to your kid won't be able to go to school, or.
You know what's interesting about this mindset, and I believe this gets down to the essence of a lot of it, really, is that in all of this, there is a belief that is pervasive among most people that allows this sort of situation to exist in the first place, and is that we do not have our own power. Because if we as a human, if we as human beings believed in our own power, if we believed in our own authority, if we believed in the power of our minds and the power of our bodies and the power of the type of presence we can carry in this world that will keep us healthy and safe and balanced, if we all had that implicitly within us, there would be no doubt that we'd be fine without a forced solution.
Yeah,
because we would have our faith in the spirit of the human. We would have our faith in our own abilities.
Right. That's a theme that goes along with what we were just talking about with the medical world too. That that
completely
not generally about empowering people. That's kind of like the tact that the government is sort of taking when they're talking about creating a vaccine. And I mean, like all sorts of ways that they could empower people to improve their own health without even going down the quantum realm.
Right.
All this crazy stuff we're talking about. You could just take some vitamins and just make sure you're just drink plenty of water and get plenty of sleep and exercise and don't eat McDonald's and quit drinking soda.
I mean, that's the conversation I'd like to start having with people, or that I'd like to see more of out there. Everyone's talking about vaccines, but not many people are talking about living a balanced life or what it takes to stay healthy. It's like no one's looking at the solutions. They're just talking about these are the problems and then pointing fingers about someone either wearing a mask or not wearing a mask.
Right.
And so, like, to me, the conversation needs to be about here's where we landed. What can we do to prevent this from happening in the future? And I'm sorry, but there's going to be another virus after COVID. Like, just because if for some reason we somehow quell COVID, there's another one that's going to show up again. We have a history in humanity of having different things come up, and all of a sudden we have some sort of an illness. It has happened over and 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 over again. And rather than try to put a Band-Aid on an owie or put a Band-Aid on a bruised knee, why don't just move the coffee table out of your way?
Mm-hmm. It's true. It seems like these things that come up, those in history, those like you mentioned, the plague and these different things. It seems like they did always sort of prompt us to empower ourselves in, like there's some controversy over the, like chiropractors or people in the anti-vaccine world would say, that improvements in health happened because of changes that were made to hygiene. And it used to be that, it used to, like when they had these big cities developing, that there still was like sewage running through the streets, and there were rats everywhere, and we didn't have these systems to sort of like take away sewage and clean our water and take away trash and all that stuff. So it created an environment where disease was able to take hold, and we made changes, and now we're healthier.
Yeah.
Well, I think this is just an opportunity for another level of, oh look, like, quit eating junk and sort of another level of refinement on what we can do to sort of empower our health.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep.
The placebo is powerful, and I quite honestly, I believe it's the answer to everything.
Right. You should be studying why placebo. What the hell is placebo in the first place?
Why does placebo
work?
Why does placebo work so well?
Why does that work?
Why are we putting so much money into something that is not placebo when it's so efficient?
Should figure out why placebo works. Do more placeboing.
I think that's an amazing point.
Well, we've jibber jabbered long enough.
We've jabbered for sure. Well, I'll drop in, see what comes forward here.
Can I say something real quick?
Sure.
Let's see. Well, I was just thinking, like, based on our last conversation. Oh, never mind. We'll just see where it goes.
Okay.
Stay out of it.
What were you going to say? Kind of curious, because
well, I was just, there's some very interesting things that came up last time. I was sort of like glad that I sort of asked some specific questions about what, there was timing. There was like the next 2.5. Sounds like things are going to get weirder over the course of the next 2 or 2.5 years, and then it's going to level out and we'll come to a new equilibrium, and things will be a lot better on all sorts of levels, and different leaders and things like that will come into play who are maybe more of who are maybe more able to unite these two poles that we're just talking about in the world. Although oddly, I asked, is there, it's kind of said, there's they mentioned something about the coming election and who might get elected. And I asked, well, is there a certain way that would be, more beneficial for it to go? And they said it would be more beneficial if the guard didn't change.
Yeah.
Which I take to mean if Trump, that them saying it would speed things along if Trump gets reelected.
Yeah.
As opposed to it changing.
Yeah.
Which, kind of goes along with some of the stuff that I've been sort of drawn to, but I'm kind of like, I don't know, my wife has other views. She sees, and certainly things that Trump is doing, I don't know, things about the environment and different things that maybe aren't so,
Yeah.
policies that he has that are bad.
Yeah.
So I don't
Yeah.
know, like how to sort of reconcile the the ways that I don't agree with Trump, the ways that I'm not conservative and don't agree with that, with the ways that I do. There's this sort of odd thing that I see in myself happening where I'm drawn towards like the stuff that I hear about how there's maybe something changing in the background that we can't necessarily see, and that the current administration has some role in that,
Yeah.
and the other side has some role in keeping things moving in a certain way, and
Yeah.
keeping the uh, keeping things moving in a certain way that we don't necessarily want.
Mm-hmm.
That won't be good. The um, the control, of the manipulation, of of humanity,
Yeah.
the darker aspects of dark stuff that's kind of
The
running in the background. They want to keep that
one
hidden
thing,
and want to keep using it, and
yeah, they just keep saying over and over is that humanity is in the middle of a major stage one, and you don't want to go back out of stage one.
stage
In
one
stage
meaning like
one,
the network chiropractic
SRI.
stuff,
That's
SRI thing.
yes.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
You don't want to step back out of stage one. You want to stay in stage one. And
Right.
stage one exposes everything
Right.
possible.
You want to go into it, right? And the current administration is moving it, is somehow
They're lighting
helping
up
us.
here.
All right. Hmm.
Oh. Mm. Interesting. They're telling me to do this with my eyes open. I'm gonna try it. Mm. Mm. I am Garhelo set. Welcome to the moment. Welcome to where you are. Welcome to your experience of Earth. Welcome to your complication. Welcome to your complications of yourself. Welcome to the complications that make your world possible. Welcome to the paradoxes and the paradigms and the ideas and the controversies and the differences that cause you all to have your unique experiences that keep you separate. We want to address a lot of what's going on in your world in terms of some of the events that are happening that are uncomfortable, that are not necessarily what you want them to be. And know that there are certain things that are happening in the world that are more vital for you to understand and know in order to propel you forward in your consciousness. There are other things that are not as important for you to know in order for you to propel forward in your consciousness. Every human puts their value into something different. Every human has something different that they value. For some, the environment is a big issue. For others, healthcare is a major issue. For others, it is childcare. Everyone has something different that they value highly. Some of these issues, some of these things that are happening that are challenging are happening to simply bring awareness to them. Things are happening for you to see at this point, not reconcile. In healing, in awareness, there is always awareness that must happen first. You must always become aware of something before you can do something about it. You are in a time right now where awareness and connection is what is being brought forward. You are being connected with the ugly truth of what has been going on behind closed doors for quite some time. You're being connected with all of the things that you did not want to see and did not want to face for many years because they were so well hidden. And if they had come forward, you wouldn't have believed it anyway. Now is the time for seeing. Now is the time for connecting, not for reconciling. There is reconciliation that is happening. Do not doubt that. However, if we were to break this into sections of ascension or sections of understanding or sections of healing, you are very much in a section of connection where you are becoming aware, and that is the most vital thing. Therefore, when it comes to supporting or not supporting an individual who is in a place of power, that individual may be doing things that go against your beliefs because of what it is doing to an aspect of the planet you live on. However, that aspect may not be the most important thing that is helping to shift your consciousness. It may be something that is a substrate or a result of a type of consciousness. However, it must still come to light that there are inequities and things that are out of integrity in those areas, so you can take a look at them and propose different agendas and different solutions when the time is right. To speak more succinctly about this, issues like the environment, Issues like the environment are critical because you live in your environment. Your health is reflective of your environment. Yes, that is true. Your health is a reflection of the environment you live in, and the environment you live in is a reflection of your health. You are one with your environment. What you see in the world is what is happening inside of you. What is happening inside of you is what's happening in the world. There really is no difference. And so when you have a president who does and says things that go against the environment, especially during this time, understand that you are seeing the result of something that needs to happen to bring more awareness to the lack of integrity of what's going on in your environment. However, also know that it is not a main line or a mainstream pivot point for your consciousness and your understanding of the world that you live in. It is something that trickles out from that pivot point. The pivot point at this time is sovereignty. You are, as a collective on the planet Earth, deciding whether to be sovereign or not. You are deciding whether you are going to trust the evolution of the human spirit and the evolution of the human body, or whether you are going to force certain reactionary measures to keep the old guard in line and alive. In your talk today, you touched upon the critical point that really is the nexus of what is going on right now. And this is the idea that you as beings, as human beings, are not powerful, that you are victims, that you cannot do or control anything in your life, and that you must always rely upon an outside source for your authority and for your well-being. Even you use this to know about your own God, which is inside of you. You are at the precipice of making these decisions. Have you ever noticed, or have you been noticing how passionate people are about this issue you have right now, of how to deal with this virus, how to deal with what is happening inside the human body? You are seeing both sides of empowerment and disempowerment. You are seeing it vividly. Understand that the desire to not say anything and to go with the flow and to simply lean into everything being said is a form of disempowerment. It is to deny your own sense of what you know to be true inside of your body and forsake that for the understanding of another. Many do not even realize that this forsaking is taking place because they do not even lean into the option of thinking independently, of doing something for themselves, of checking in with themselves. There is nothing wrong with this. It is simply a state of awareness and a state of consciousness. However, do know that this is what is changing in your world at this time, is that there are fewer and fewer and fewer people who are interested in just listening to someone else's ideas and believing them hook, line, and sinker. More and more of you are wanting your own thoughts. More and more of you are wanting your own authority over your bodies. More and more and more of you are wanting author of your own lives. This is the change in consciousness that you are seeing. and it is a big one. It is the biggest decision point your planet ever will make. You cannot move forward if you stay locked in a belief system that says you are not God. You cannot move forward in your planet or evolve as a species if you cannot trust yourselves. You cannot move forward as a species if this trust of yourselves does not evolve into trust of each other. This point you are at right now is the nexus of all of it. You have those who believe in themselves being confronted by those who do not. You have those who do not believe in themselves being confronted by those who do. This is one of the prime differences that is upon your planet at this time. This type of thinking is one of the biggest distinguishing points between people right now. Understand that when we talk about self-love and we encourage you to love yourselves, it is an encouragement into the self-empowerment. Because love is the new power, and power is love. And that truly is what is happening right now, is you are being able to love yourselves more. And if you love yourself, and your love is sincere, and you believe in your own self-love so fully, this world cannot touch you adversely. You cannot be affected adversely if you remain in love with yourself. We invite you, those of you who this resonates with, if you have a feeling within you that seems to resonate with these words, or that can accept and hear them, and maybe hear a glimmer of truth within them, this message is for you. This message is for you if you are willing to believe in yourself. This message is for you if you're willing to change the world by changing who you are. This message is for you if you want to trust yourself more. This message is for you if you want to love yourself more. This message is for you if you truly want to have world peace and vibrance. We just gave you a huge clue. If you give your authority, your ideas, your sense of safety, your sense of peace, your sense of knowing to anything that is outside of your own bioenergetic, mental, emotional bodies, you have no vibrance. Your vibrance is diminished. Those who shine the brightest do so because they do so from within. It is not because they grab something from outside themselves. Vibrance, life, energy, creativity, love comes from within. It is not something that is given. It is not something that is doled out. It is not something that is handed to you by a medical establishment, an institution, or a religion. It is something that is in you, that when you find it and you become your own authority, and you live in that place, vibrance is yours eternal. When you deny it and you ask for things to be handed to you because you doubt yourself, you diminish your vibrance. This is not something that happens overnight. This is not an instantaneous shift. Becoming vibrant takes time, patience, effort. Yes, it takes effort because it's not comfortable. You live in a world where many things have been handed to you. Many things have been easy for you. This does not apply to everyone, and understand that there is a gift in that as well. But that isn't what we want to talk about. Are there any questions that you have about what we have shared?
No. I guess you just said that's not what you want to talk about. I'm interested to hear what you want to talk about, I guess. Not that that wasn't interesting. But.
We did not wish to speak about those who give their power away. We wish to speak to those who are ready to embrace their power, who are ready to embrace their individuality, those who are ready to embrace their vibrance. These are the ones who are leading the way to the new earth. These are the ones who are creating the new earth. These are the ones who are polishing the earth clean. These are the ones who are taking those who do not understand by the hand and leading them into their own salvation. And sometimes it is done through irritating them. Sometimes it is done by poking at them. There is a belief that only the hand of love can take you through the gates of heaven, and that is not so. It is an attribute that is experienced when you are a piece of heaven, but it is not always what takes you there. It takes knowing yourself. It takes individuation. It takes looking within, discovering within, seeing within, knowing within, and living from that place as authentically as you know how and as you are so creatively inspired to do. And that is really the key to opening the gates of heaven. Are there any questions about what we have said?
In the past, you kind of said that there's what's happening is, I think you've said, more about a feminine sort of thing coming to the more the feminine coming through. But it sounds like what you just said, finding heaven through being sometimes poked or prodded or challenged. That kind of sounds like more of a masculine way of doing things. I don't know.
If you are receiving a poke and you judge that poke and say that poke is no good, did you really receive that poke? You did not. You denied the poke. You denied it and you stayed the same. A divine, a being that is divinely, femininely connected and guided and rooted, can receive and understands that a poke or something that may elicit an impassioned response is there to help you. To get poked, become angry and defiant, is to believe that you have been hurt. When you are divinely grounded, you take pain and you ask, what can this show me? What can I integrate with this? How do I work with this impassioned response that I feel? Is this to move through me to reveal something else, or is this a piece of me that will endure? And do I make friends with what is here now? But to deny it, that is removing the feminine nature. Divine feminine is able to receive everything without judgment. As we say this, in the collective, there are those who are very disturbed by these words. There are those who wish to misconstrue these words to meaning that women are here to be abused and say nothing. This is not at all the truth. This is not at all what we are saying. What we are saying is that everything that happens is a blessing, and when you can train yourself to see it that way, you empower yourself beyond believing that you were ever hurt. You empower yourself beyond thinking that you are less than your abuser. Indeed, you have the conscious thought that says you are more because you are not abusive. However, you are still playing in the game when you decide that you have been hurt. In order for a giver, there must be a receiver. And either one has the power to enlighten the other. The giver can give enlightenment just as powerfully as a receiver can receive and turn anything into enlightenment. This is the gift of the divine feminine, is to receive and transmute, to transform, to shift, to flow, to meld what it receives into divinity. The divine masculine is to be divine and share that divine. You're at a point where your planet and your people are hurting because there's still a belief that you can be hurt, that what has been done to you is something that you could not change on your own, that you could not receive and find good within, but you can. This is where you are at. Is there a question about what we have said?
No, honestly, it feels pretty complete.
Thank you for this opportunity to be here. thank you for this opportunity to share this message with you. If you find yourself hearing words in this message and you feel compelled in any way, positive or negative, or impassioned in either direction, take a moment and breathe into what you feel. Do not fear what you feel. Do not judge what you feel. Be with it. Be with it as it is a part of your journey, as these words are a part of your journey. You are not separate from your journey. You are constantly creating it. Choose wisely in what you and know that what we say is true. You have the power of manifestation in every single moment of your life. Do not waste it on judgment or blame. Thank you for this opportunity. Blessings to all. Well, okay.
Well, there you go.
There we have it.
I wanted you to keep your eyes open.
Yeah. 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 It did. Oh. Oh. Oh man.
What's going on?
I just feel like I'm integrating a lot of that. Integrating a lot of that. Yeah. Wow, that's really interesting. I thought it was really interesting the way they broke that down into where we're at with things.
Right. Yeah, it seems like they keep sort of like, you get caught up in one side or the other, but I guess they're saying whether you're on the receiving end or you're poking or receiving, it's all for the purpose of our waking up, I guess. If we're getting poked, the challenge is to see how you can use it.
Yeah. Turn it into fuel.
Yeah.
Let it be fuel.
And in that way, you will empower yourself.
Yep.
A therapist that I went to one time, he said, could you give yourself permission? What if you honored, I can't remember exactly how I said it, honor yourself above all others for the rest of it? Can you give yourself permission to honor yourself above all others for the rest of your life? I don't know, that might be a paraphrasing, but it was something like that. It was kind of mind-blowing for me to sort of give myself permission to sort of just honor my own sense of self, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think there's some nuances to that.
I've got people that that I work with that I'll say, just say to yourself, I give myself what I need. And they have a very hard time saying that. And we're very much conditioned to give out constantly, but not receive.
Mm-hmm.
Very much a masculine oriented way of living.
I was
Not
kind of
very good
referring.
receivers.
I was kind of there's that, but I was kind of referring to what they were saying about just honoring yourself or trusting yourself or you being your own authority, sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of giving us permission to be your own authority. I guess sovereignty. That's what they were saying is something we're working on.
Yeah. Yep. Well, gotta fly.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Yep. Thanks for watching New Consciousness Now or listening.
Thanks for being a part of New Consciousness Now. Appreciate being here. And we'll see you next time.
See you next time. Like us, share us, all that.
Indeed. New Consciousness Now on YouTube or anywhere you find podcasts.